Hi, I'm Shahzadi Devje, registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. And in this video, I'm going to answer one of the most frequent questions I get on social media. What are some good carbs for a diabetic? Now, before we differentiate between good and bad carbs, it's important to understand what carbohydrates are. They are one of three macronutrients, so nutrients that form a large part of our diet found in food. The others are fat and protein. Now, our food is mostly a combination of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in diverse amounts. Carbohydrates are frequently associated with negative connotations. However, carbohydrates are a broad category. It's their type, quality, and quantity in our diet that's important, especially for those with diabetes. It can be overwhelming to understand exactly which carbs provide us with the best nutrition. It is especially difficult for people managing blood sugars for type 2 diabetes management. Now, before we go on, I'd like to reiterate that I try my best not to categorize people by specific conditions. My personal view is that anybody who suffers from a medical condition, and especially those which are life-altering, should not be labeled on the basis of their illnesses. Nonetheless, the reality is that I'm frequently asked what are good carbs for a diabetic to eat, and feel compelled to use the term diabetic to answer your question. Okay, let's dive in. So, carbohydrates exist in a variety of forms, and not all provide the same nutritional value, as we shall see. Carbohydrates are the body's primary source of energy. When you eat carbohydrates, they're broken down into glucose or sugar in your digestive tract. This, together with the insulin produced by the pancreas, impacts blood sugar levels. Now, there are three types of carbohydrates: starches, sugars, and fiber. Starches are complex carbohydrates that include starchy vegetables like potatoes, corn, and peas, dry beans like black-eyed peas, fava beans, kidney beans, and also grains, wheat, rice, maize, and oatmeal. Now, starches are carbohydrates that slowly release energy, and because they take time to break down in the body, these starches provide a sustained release of energy and therefore better regulate blood glucose levels. They are also important sources of vitamins and minerals. Now, let's talk about sugar for a moment. So, there are two types: simple, also known as added sugars, and naturally occurring sugars. Naturally occurring sugars are found in foods such as grains, vegetables, and fruits. Any amount of sugar that is added to a food during processing or preparation is known as added sugar. You'll typically see it found in bread, condiments, dairy products, and highly processed foods. Here we're talking cookies, soft drinks, and pastries, for example. The third and last type of carbohydrate is dietary fiber. Now, this isn't digested in the body and therefore does not impact blood sugars. It's found in food items such as wholemeal bread, brown rice, whole grain cereals, fruits, and vegetables. There are actually two types of dietary fiber: soluble and insoluble. Soluble fiber dissolves in water and it can help to reduce blood sugar levels and cholesterol levels. Oats, barley, beans, certain fruits and vegetables, lentils, and peas are all good sources of soluble fiber. Insoluble fiber does not dissolve in water and may help to regulate bowel movements by adding bulk. Insoluble fiber can be found in wheat bran, vegetables, and whole grains. The key thing to remember is that both types of fiber are important for optimal health, In fact, a diet high in both soluble and insoluble fiber has been linked to a decreased chance of heart disease, diabetes, improved insulin sensitivity, and inflammation control. Now that we've learnt about carbohydrates, let's cover what are some nutritious carbs for someone with diabetes. Whole grains such as whole oats, quinoa, brown rice, whole barley are amazing, along with whole fruits instead of juices. For example, eating an apple with the skin on will provide more fiber than drinking a glass of apple juice. People with diabetes may also trade quinoa, oats, and bulgur wheat for refined white pasta or white rice. Plus, non-starchy vegetables such as asparagus, broccoli, okra, and peppers are lower in carbs and a great source of energy. Here's a list of some whole grain options to include more often. Other sources of nourishing carbs for diabetes are here. The glycemic index ranks carbohydrates based on how quickly they are converted into glucose in the body. Foods that break down into sugars the quickest have the highest glycemic index numbers, whereas foods that break down slowly have lower glycemic index numbers. Carbohydrate-rich foods with a low glycemic index are those with a number of 55 or less. The following are excellent carbohydrate choices. Now, what the glycemic index doesn't tell you is how much carbohydrates are in your meal or snack. It's best to evaluate a food's glycemic index number together with its entire carbohydrate content to obtain a better impression of how meals impact your blood sugars. I'd also say that the glycemic index is not the final word on carbohydrate foods. What you eat with your carbs is just as important, if not more so. With any low GI food, it's all about portion control and consuming these foods in combinations that keep blood sugar levels in check. I haven't met anyone with diabetes who hasn't been desperate to break their love-hate relationship with sugar. Now, indeed, sugar cravings can take their toll. It's important to remember that it's natural to crave sugar or even to have a sweet tooth. However, we need to cleverly detect the kind of hunger we are faced with. Is it truly stomach hunger? Is it mouth or sensory hunger? Now, this typically occurs when one of the human senses triggers a desire for food. These include smelling food, food visuals, or hearing related sounds such as a stash of samosas being piled on a plate. And last but not the least, is it heart hunger or hunger by association? There is a desire for food that occurs due to an emotion, memory, or even a thought. Once we are able to differentiate the kind of hunger, we can enjoy treats in moderation. When planning your diabetes diet, I would recommend that you make wholesome, fiber-rich carbohydrates with a low glycemic index the bulk of your carbohydrate intake. And remember, what you eat and when also matters. Plus, maintaining a consistent eating schedule, especially when it comes to meal frequency, is key. More importantly, make good use of nutritious carbs to create balanced and delicious meals. Thanks for watching, folks. Leave me a comment and let me know what you want me to cover next. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.